We're going to talk about Bill Belichick. You might have heard he is the new head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels football program. And obviously, this is a big story. A lot of connections to sports media, mostly because Bill Belichick held 90% of the jobs this past NFL season. But, I think that it was so shocking having Bill Belichick. It was just crazy the way that story came together. It's like we spend all year wondering, like, is Bill Belichick going to go to the Giants? Is he going to go to the Cowboys? Like, would he flirt with the Jets? Which it turns out he might have done. And then all of a sudden, like, the week after Thanksgiving, it comes out he interviewed with North Carolina, and then a week later he has the job, like just out of nowhere. Nobody was talking about Bill Belichick as a college head coach. And so it's kind of created kind of the perfect platform for people to give takes. And will Bill Belichick be successful? Will he be a failure? And by and large, just examining this, like the takes are either one or the other. And you're either dug in that you think he's going to be a total disaster and that he's not going to relate to college players and that he's not going to relate, to the NIL era and the transfer portal, which we'll talk about in a minute here, or that you think like this is the greatest coach of all time. He's coming down into the ACC, which doesn't have, a dominant program. He's going to coach circles around Dabo Sweeney and Mario Cristobal and whoever the head coach at SMU is. And he's going to be his genius is just going to translate from the NFL, even though he hadn't been such a genius these last few years, to the college level. So I think that, like, I'm looking at Stuart Mandel from The Athletic. His column is "Here's Why North Carolina is going to Regret Hiring Bill Belichick." And it's just a total takedown of why this isn't going to work. References Charlie Weiss, references the changing college landscape and how they've kind of gotten away from these rock star head coaches in recent years. And then you have other people like, unsurprisingly, Bill Simmons, who think Bill Belichick is just going to crush it, that he's going to turn North Carolina into a powerhouse. And so that's what I think. And that's actually, I think that's reflective of what's going to happen. I think this is either going to be a total success or a total failure. I do not see a world where Bill Belichick is coaching North Carolina to like 8-4 seasons. So I just think like, that's been interesting watching the reaction is you're either all in or you think this is going to be a disaster.
I think the strongest and most interesting takes to me have been from people like Stuart Mandel, who are coming at it more from a deeper understanding of the college world. I actually see the national response as maybe the best example of it is what Tom Brady said, which I would sum up most succinctly as, whoa. You know what I mean? Like, nobody knows what to think. It's just sort of like, damn, didn't see that one coming. It's sort of like what all of us thought. And I think if you care about sports long enough and see the minutia on X and everywhere else play out, I think a lot of us were like, okay, he's not going to coach UNC. Like,
right.
Cool story, fun rumor, let's move on. And then he did. And I think that surprise is kind of what's come through the most. Like, I watched, pardon the interruption, on I guess the day after it went through, and Troy Aikman came on. And of course, they asked him about it. He's the highest paid, most prominent NFL voice on the network. You've called this guy in Super Bowls. You've seen his whole career play out. What do you think? And he was like, yeah, I'm interested to see how Coach Belichick does. That was a really interesting move for him. It's like, it's all you got? You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think for such a huge story, I think almost the level of surprise about it just made people not know what to think. But I wish at that point it's kind of open season. Take a whack, throw a take out there. Who cares? No one else knows what to say. Go for it, Say he's going to suck or say he's going to be awesome. No one's going to really remember it, I don't think.
Well, that's the thing too, is like, how could you know? Like, I just don't know how people could feel confidently one way or the other, even though I tend to think it's going to be one or the other, but I just don't know how it's so unprecedented. Like this, like if you just dropped Phil Jackson, like into not even, I was going to say North Carolina or Duke, but this would be if he went and coached Ohio State. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't know how anybody could know what Bill Belichick is going to do at North Carolina, because it's such an unprecedented situation on so many fronts, on top of the ever-changing college athletics landscape. So
I think it's because only college reporters know what the hell is going on in college sports.
Yeah.
I just think that's like you kind of compare it to like the basketball guys retiring. the whole round of Coach K and Tony Bennett and Roy
Mhm.
Williams and everybody leaving that sport. And I feel like when I've seen the reaction to that, it's just kind of like crazy times,
Yeah.
and that's sort of it. And maybe we're just in a moment that is really confusing and too quick paced with all the evolution of everything to really like get our heads straight about it. And maybe Belichick and how he does will be like a kind of signpost for where this is all headed. Can this work? Is this a pathway now? And now we got to take it seriously? Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's been interesting because it's always been the reverse, right? Like Jim Harbaugh leaves college. All these coaches are leaving college because coaches are leaving head coaching jobs to take coordinator jobs with NFL teams because they're sick of college. And now here you have the most prominent head coach of our lifetime doing the exact reverse. Like it's really a fascinating situation.
The one thing I did want to throw out there is the whole narrative around him chasing the NFL wins record and that being the only thing he thinks about when he wakes up and the last thing he thinks about when he goes to sleep, and he's missing his children's birthdays for it, and all he can think about is the NFL wins record. That was what you would have thought after he got fired last year. Turns out he didn't really care about that. Pat McAfee asked him point blank, and you got to say that now, right? But I don't know. I believe it.
Well, the part about that too is Andy Reid's going to obliterate that record either way. Like Andy Reid coaches 3 more NFL seasons and that's his record, I'm pretty sure. So, and there's no reason to think he's not. So
and
I thought
Nick
that
Wright
was fun.
I think, the only person pointing that out, and people just told him to shut up because he's a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, but it's true. Like it's like he's guaranteed 12 wins a year as long as he wants them. The other thing was Seth Wickersham's report from ESPN, which he's been on top of, the Belichick and the Patriots stuff for as long as I can remember. But he wrote this story, and the way he teased it was he was quoting an anonymous source that said, "This is a big fuck you to the NFL." And then you read through the story, and like right there in the first paragraph or the first few paragraphs is that Bill Belichick spent the whole year holding Zoom calls with his cronies, going over every NFL team with the subtext being that, what's the opening we're going to take? And they realized by midseason that none of these teams were going to want them. So it was like, who said fuck you to who first here?
By the way, shout out to Mike Vrabel for escaping the Belichick crony label. He just isn't associated with any of that, and he gets to be like basically take the jobs that Belichick might have taken from him, and he's right there. But yeah, I thought that the Wickersham piece was obviously like the definitive thing. I think we all kind of knew like, when is this thing dropping, the minute that Belichick got that job. And I think that there is a little bit of praise and pro Belichick angle to that piece and to Wickersham's reporting and closeness to the Patriots dynasty all these years. But I think that was also kind of underlying a lot of the conversation too, Ben, was no one really wanted to spell out how big of an embarrassment this was. And so maybe that was like the take to have, actually, was like, this guy couldn't even get a job, and that's pretty embarrassing, but no one really wanted to disrespect him that much to say that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like you would not think Bill Belichick hates the media. Like that's his whole thing, is he hates the media. Yeah. So like, I'm surprised there's not just one guy being a dick about all of this.
Because there's no actual media anymore. It's all players. Right. So they all respect him.
That's a good point.